Aloha, Professor. Congratulations. 50 years in the martial arts. Wow. What an incredible achievement, and one that's taken you on an amazing journey. I'm honored to be here to celebrate it with you. I know most of you have heard the term talking story. It's an important part of our art. Today I'm going to do just that. The talking story, it helps keep us connected and gives us insight into the art. So when talking story takes place, listen, ask questions when appropriate, get firsthand knowledge while it's available from those who have it and who are willing to pass it along. So first, before talking story, respect. Thanks to those who came before us, like Sijo Imperato, Grandmaster Siddha Sanchin, Professor Jerry Usan. For without them, we would not be here today. And thank you, Professor Blevins, for passing along that knowledge to us. On a personal note, I met Professor Blevins in 1978 in Professor Usan's class. Although time is a way of blurring the details, some things you don't forget. Two memorable ones for me are Professor Blevins kicking me in the head and Professor Usan's smile. It's said that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. It's true. But most never take that step for whatever reason, and those who do, most never finish. The ones who did finish had a good foundation. So let's talk about Professor Blevins' journey. Some of you may know that Professor Blevins was a good wrestler in high school. He competed against older, stronger opponents and didn't shy away from the grind. Early on, he demonstrated an unwavering commitment to hard work and physical challenges. This toughness, this will to push through the toughest moments, had prepared him for what was to come. After high school, the professor joined the Navy and was stationed in Hawaii. He found a martial arts club and joined, but not everybody was welcome. Some students questioned his place, but his sensei, Professor Usan, saw something special in him. Over time, he proved them wrong, not through words, but through actions. His dedication, his persistence, and his willingness to put in the work earned the respect of those around him. His sensei was very proud of him and introduced him to many high-ranking belts. And because of that, he was able to listen to them talking story, which gave him insight into the art. While in Hawaii, he competed against many higher-ranking belts and earned their admiration. Each fight was not just a testimony of his skill, but his unwavering belief in himself. While in Hawaii, the professor was deployed to the Philippines, where he found that adversity comes in many forms, like training during typhoons, escaping from monkeys, and just finding the time to train. But somehow, he was able to make it work. While there, he entered a tournament, not knowing all the logistics, like a 6-hour jeepney ride. Jeepneys are open-air taxis, a hostile crowd, military guards with machine guns at ringside, and a riot in the stands. Despite it all, he emerged victorious in Manila, and that was no small feat. Winning there wasn't just about being the best in the ring, it was about perseverance in the face of adversity. Upon returning to the mainland, he left the military and opened his first school in Ohio in 1979. For years, he juggled work, teaching in the evenings, raising a family, and competing in tournaments. His commitment to his students and his craft was never in question. It wasn't just about teaching moves. It was about shaping character, instilling discipline, and passing on the true essence of the martial arts. Later, he moved to Florida and handed over his Ohio school to his trusted students. He then opened a new school in Florida and continued to support his instructors in Ohio. On his job, he found ways to apply the lessons he learned in the martial arts, making real-world applications of his skills that he had learned over the decades. And then something happened that would change everything. In an instant, the professor was shot by accident during a training scenario. It's impossible to imagine the physical and emotional toll of such an event. But through sheer willpower, faith, and the mastery of his breath, he kept his focus. His discipline helped him endure the pain and slow his heart rate and survive. That moment tested everything he had learned. He emerged stronger, more determined, and more committed than ever to share what he had known with others. In the years that followed, he traveled to Afghanistan, where he helped train police forces in one of the most challenging environments imaginable, a war zone. He trained in makeshift spaces when he could find them, and despite the danger, he didn't stop. He continued to train, to teach, and even found time to spar with fellow students abroad. He returned home from Afghanistan in 2006. He continued to mentor students, hosting seminars in Florida, Ohio, and Washington State. He also built a dojo in Florida, creating a headquarters for the next generation of martial artists to learn, grow, and develop their own skills. Professor Blevins, your journey isn't just about personal achievement. It's about a lifetime of service to the martial arts. You've proven time and time again that the martial arts are not just a practice, it's a way of life. You taught us all what it means to be resilient, to adapt, to give back, and to constantly push forward no matter what obstacles we face. Professor, thank you for showing us the true dedication looks like. Thank you for being a living example of what it means to embody the martial arts spirit, mind, and body, not just in the dojo, but in every aspect of your life. Your journey has touched us, and your lessons will continue to guide us for many years to come. Mahalo.
Aloha. My name is Galen Rhodes. I'm a second-degree black belt in Yusan Hawaiian Kempo. I joined the organization in the summer of 1991 at the age of 30 years old. I saw an advertisement on the local cable TV about a karate club in Oak Harbor. I called the number and spoke to Master Beam, and he informed me that at that time he didn't have any openings. Master Beam and I worked at the same factory, so when I would see him out and about in the factory, I would always stop and ask if he had any openings yet. He finally relented after several months and told me to come watch a class. At that time, the dojo was in the back of a barn, pretty rustic training. It was cold in the winter and hot in the summer. Being the low-ranking belt, it became my job on the way home from work to stop and light 2 kerosene heaters in the wintertime so that we would have heat in the dojo when we got there later in the evening. In 1992, Professor Blevins came home to Oak Harbor for a visit. I was ready to test for my purple belt at that time. I tested for my first belt in front of Professor Blevins, Master Beam, Mr. Brad Farmer, and Mr. Donnie Jackson. In November of 1994, we got word that Professor Blevins had been shot during a training exercise in Florida. We were all very concerned for his health and welfare, and we're hoping for a speedy recovery. 1999 was a huge year for Yusan Hawaiian Kempo. Several of us from the Oak Harbor Dojo traveled to Las Vegas to participate in the 50th anniversary of Kajukenbo. There was a seminar where we met Alohi, Solomon Ka'ivau. There was a tournament which we all participated in, and then a huge luau party at the end. While we were there, I also had the honor of meeting Sijo Emperado and Senior Grandmaster Al Dela Cruz, and many, many, many high-ranking black belts and professors in the Kajukenbo organization. We also had the honor of meeting many of Professor Yusan's other students. Professor Yusan held promotions in the Luxor Hotel. Also in 1999, Master Beam bought an old brick factory, and we set to work converting one of the buildings into the dojo where we are today. We put up ceiling, walls, wiring, lights, fans, and carpet on the floor. 1999 did not end well, though. In December of 1999, we heard of Professor Yusan's passing. It was a dark day in our organization. In June of 2003, I tested for my black belt. I tested first here in Oak Harbor, and then Master Beam and I traveled to Florida, and I tested in front of Professor Blevins. And then we had a huge party to celebrate. In July of 2006, Mr. Norm Zavella, Mr. Terry Wilhelm, and Mr. Rob Cupp tested for their black belt. It was a huge day for our branch of the tree. In November of that year, 2006, we were participating in a tournament in Indiana. I had a good day going. I had got either first or second in open hands and in weapons forms. I had won the breaking competition, and all I had to do was get a second place sparring, and the grand championship trophy was mine. While I was sparring with Mr. Cupp, I went to throw a ridge hand and a roundhouse kick at the same time, and something popped up high between my shoulder blades and my back. everything from there down stopped working. When we got back to Toledo, I went to the ER, and the next morning a neurosurgeon operated to remove cartilage that was pressing on my spinal cord. It took a long time for me to get back. I had to learn to walk and then jog again. And I wasn't allowed any contact at all for at least 6 months. So I joined a Tai Chi class in Toledo to help with my strength and balance. In July of 2019, Mr. Norm Zavella and myself came to Florida to test for our second degree. I want to thank Professor Blevins for his time and knowledge, for the many seminars and trainings through the years. I credit the martial arts for saving my life. I credit it now for keeping me healthy. Since I've retired, I train more and I enjoy it more. When I train, it keeps my blood pressure and all my other vitals as they should be. Congratulations to the professor for your new dojo. Congratulations for your birthday, and congratulations for 50 years of training. Aloha.
Hello, my name is Norman Zavella, black belt second degree. Thank you for giving me the time to share some of my experience in Yusan Hawaiian Kempo. I joined Yusan Hawaiian Kempo in the YHK Ohana in 2000. I found a dojo outside of Oak Harbor, Ohio, led by Sensei Jeff Bean. The building was less than a year old, and my experience with martial arts was not much more than what I had seen in Bruce Lee movies. Within a few years, I attained the ranks of orange belt and green belt. I had started teaching adult and kids classes in preparation for black belt. Our dojo had earned the reputation of tough tournament competitors, earning over 100 trophies and medals within a year for several years. 2006 was a special year. Professor Blevins had returned from Afghanistan and came to Ohio in July of 2006. It was an honor to visit with him for the first time and to train and be taught by him. It was also special to witness Professor Blevins award my instructor the title of Master, Master Jeff Bean. 2006 was also special to me personally because I was able to test and achieve the rank of black belt first degree. I learned becoming a black belt was more than just passing grades on the test. There's a saying that a black belt is simply a white belt that never quit, but there's much more to it than that. Being a black belt takes dedication for years and a respect for the art. I also learned being proficient at Kajukenbo was more than just memorizing techniques. I was beginning to discover how the doctrines of our art were incorporated into those techniques. Over the next several years, Professor Blevins had led seminars known as the Meeting of the Warriors. Here it was inspirational to see Professor bring those doctrines to life in the techniques he was demonstrating. 2019 was another milestone when Mr. Galen Rhodes and I traveled to Florida and tested before Professor Blevins and Master Beam, and we achieved the rank of black belt second degree. It is November 2025, and I've been training for 25 years now. The dedication, the passion, and the respect for the art that Professor Blevins has shown for 50 years is truly special. Thank you, Professor, for the teachings and the patience you have shown to me over the years.
My name is Rob Cupp. I'm a first degree black belt in Yusan Hawaiian Kempo. And I want to say happy birthday, Professor Blevins, and congratulations on 50 years of training in the art of Kajukenbo, imparting your knowledge to your students, and promoting Yusan Hawaiian Kempo. I began my training in Kajukenbo Karate with Professor Blevins in June of 1982. when I was 15 years old. I started in the first dojo in Port Clinton, Ohio, which was located on Lincoln Drive next to the city bakery in an old machine shop. The room, about 50 feet long, and there were about 20 people in front of me during that first class. At the time, Master Beam was a green belt, and he was among my fellow students, along with Brad Farmer, Larry Wilburn, Terry Briggs, and Donnie Jackson. The Port Clinton Dojo moved around quite a bit over the years. At one point, we occupied a room above a jewelry store in downtown. And then we moved to an old building on Fulton Street, which had been an auto parts store, before Professor Blevins consolidated the classes all to the Oak Harbor Dojo. I first met Professor Yusan shortly after I started training. He visited Oak Harbor from Hawaii, and he brought with him a number of Hawaiian foods, many of which I had never heard of before. At a party that we had in his honor, I asked him about these foods that I was unfamiliar with, and he simply encouraged me to try them. He said if I liked them, I could have some more, and if I didn't, I could move on. His attitude towards embracing new experiences still resonates with me today. I trained diligently for about 3 years to attain the rank of green belt. In the fall of 1985, I left for college, but I continued my training on my own and attended classes at the dojo as often as I could. After 5 years as a green belt, I finally made brown belt in 1990. At that time, the dojo was located in a metal pole building out on Stangy Road outside of Oak Harbor. The training conditions were often challenging due to the lack of insulation in the building. In the summertime, the interior would become very hot and stifling, and frigid in the winter. Many times, on the coldest days, we would have to wear sweats underneath our gis, and sometimes even 2 pairs of socks just to train. In 1993, I accepted a job with demanding hours and a long commute, making regular dojo attendance nearly impossible. I left the Oak Harbor Dojo, but I continued to train on my own. In 2001, I had another job, a new job, that offered me more flexibility. I reconnected with Master Beam at a 4th of July party in Oak Harbor. By that time, he had attained the rank of 6th degree black belt and had moved the dojo to a new location on Route 105 outside of Oak Harbor, Ohio. 5 years later, and 24 years after I first set foot into a dojo, I attained the rank of 1st degree black belt. It was a grueling 10-hour test that pushed me to my physical and mental limits. 5 hours in, the demanding physical requirements left me nauseous from exhaustion. It was during that moment of adversity that Kajukenbo and Yusan Hawaiian Kempo's true teachings resonated within me. I refused to quit, and my unwavering determination carried me through the rest of the test. This unforgettable experience revealed my inner strength and left me with immense gratitude for the resilience and perseverance instilled in me by my instructors, including Professor Blevins. His guidance continues to shape me as a martial artist and as a person. Professor Blevins, your dedication to upholding Professor Yusan's legacy is inspiring. Your teachings have enriched my life in countless ways, making me a better martial artist and a better person. And for that, I am truly grateful.
Aloha, everyone. This is Greg Ayala, first degree black belt with the Yusan Hawaiian Kempo, representing our Washington branch. I was first introduced to Yusan Hawaiian Kempo through my sensei, Russ Ellison, by way of his daughter, Selena, who I happened to be dating at the time. There's some funny stories that come up with that, but I'll save those for another day. But yeah, I just remember, 15 years ago, after a few months of coming around the house, Sensei Russ was like, "Hey, come do a practice. Come check out the art." I kind of seen him do a little bit of training out in his backyard, and actually, almost exactly 15 years ago today, back November 2010, I went out there with a buddy. Classes at that time were held in Olympic Middle School cafeteria, where the tile floor was hard, and it was only cleaned twice a year, whether it needed it or not. And so we always celebrated those moments. But yeah, I'll never forget that first practice. My buddy and I stood there in awe, just watching the intensity, the takedowns, the loud kias, those sharp black keys moving across the floor. I was hooked just from that moment on. And 6 months later, I was introduced to Professor Blevins. When I met Professor, I was only 20 years old, young, naive, completely unaware of how much I still had to learn. I love watching UFC fights on the weekends. I love the hard physical style of training that Sensei Russ put us through. But meeting Professor, that was something different entirely. The way he just led the seminar, the precision in his movement, the fact that he could still demonstrate at such an elite level decades into his journey was beyond inspiring for me. And when he would speak about Hawaii and just the early days of Kajukenbo, you could feel the pride, the authenticity in his voice, and it lit a fire in me to keep training, to keep growing. And one funny moment I'll never forget during that exact seminar, actually, in front of, I think there's about 20, maybe 23 of us, uh, Professor kind of held his red belt in his hands, and he looked straight at me and he said, "You see this right here? This is 35 years of sacrifice and discipline. Do you want to have one of these one day?" And and me being brand new, a little bit overzealous, I shouted from my chest, "Yes, sir." And he looked at me, kind of paused, gave a little smirk, which is kind of rare, and he says, "That was rhetorical." And he just went right back to teaching. And I always laugh looking back on that. And but I just feel like that moment summed up what he represented in my life ever since. Professor has always demanded a version of me that didn't quite exist yet. And that's true to even this day. There were times I felt humbled or even thought he didn't like me because of how direct he could be. Um, but I've come to realize he wasn't really focused on my progression in the art. While he cared about that, he was really focused on the person I was becoming through it. And for that, I will always be deeply grateful. I'm 35 now. I've now been part of the Yusan Hawaiian Kempo for not only my entire adult life, but for almost half of my physical life as well. The senior belts who have modeled what it means to live the art both in and out of the dojo have always been an incredible example to me. Y'all took a 20-year-old kid in and made a place for him. And for that, that will always mean the world to me. Over the last 15 years, life has happened. I went to college, I got a degree, I got married, I started businesses. I have two kids now. In fact, my wife and my kids have never even known a version of me when Kajukenbo wasn't a part of my life. And for me, that's actually something truly special. And so Kajukenbo isn't just something I do anymore. It's part of who I am. It's shaped my mindset, my discipline, my character, probably more than anything else, maybe other than my faith in Christ. And so I just want to say happy birthday. Congratulations, Professor Blevins, for just 50 years of discipline, consistency, sacrifice, in keeping not only Yusan Hawaiian Kempo alive, but the art of Kajukenbo thriving. It truly breaks my heart that I can't be there in person this weekend, but I hope you all have an amazing time celebrating the new dojo and this incredible milestone. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Professor. Thank you, Yusan Hawaiian Kempo Ohana. I hope you have a great weekend celebrating. Mahalo.
Aloha. This is Master Jeff Beam, 7th degree from Mocarbor, Ohio. I thank God for the blessing and opportunity to train with Professor Blevins since August of 1979, 46 years and counting. It has been a magnificent journey that taught me how to train through discipline, respect of the spirit, mind, and body. It all started when my mom showed me an ad in the newspaper of an ex-wrestler coming back to town to teach karate classes. I decided to sign up and join, and have been there ever since. Our first dojo was a machine shop, and the floor required sweeping every night before class of the metal shavings. I'll never forget our first mat, a refrigerator box, and you wanted to be one of the first few thrown onto it because there wasn't much cushion after that. Shortly after, Professor opened up a dojo in town called Blevins School of Kajukenbo Karate. It was an old shoe store that he fixed up to be very nice. A few years later, in 1982, I achieved my green belt and became assistant instructor when I started teaching the kids class, because there was a requirement of 100 teaching hours before you could become a black belt. In 1983, Brad Farmer and I accomplished our first degree black belt and became Professor's first black belts. Shortly after that, he opened up a school in Port Clinton, Ohio, where we shared duties between Port Clinton and Oak Harbor to maintain 2 dojos. A few years later, he closed both of those dojos and decided to build a garage and loft behind his house where we continued to train. During that time, we had traveled tri-state, trained in a bunch of tournaments, competed in a bunch of tournaments, probably had over 500 trophies accomplished during those years of training. And then in 1988, he left Ohio and left the teaching to us. One of our students had a barn where we constructed a wall. We had to heat with kerosene. The ceiling leaked. It was very rustic, to say the least, but we kept training. In 1997, I tore my bicep tendon just before planning to travel to Florida for my testing of 4th degree. Professor said, "You're going to come on down. We're going to test and train, and we're all going to use one arm," because that's all I had to use. And it was quite unique and quite an accomplishment for me during the belt test. In 1999, we traveled to Las Vegas, where there was a tournament. There were seminars. Professor Yusan gave out some promotions. In September of 99, we purchased the dojo where we are currently at in Oak Harbor. And then on December of 99, the passing of Professor Yusan. And then in 2003, Mr. Rhodes, Galen Rhodes, became my first black belt. In 2006, Professor came back from Afghanistan for a second turn and awarded me the title of Master Jeff Beam and presented me my red-white belt. And then in 2022, I received my 7th degree red-black belt. Professor, I can't say enough of all you've given me and the rest of the students in Yusan Hawaiian Kempo. Thanks for everything, and aloha. God bless.